Good morning, Copenhagen. Good. Thank you.
My name is Mikkel. I'm the founder and still the owner of Mikkeller brewery and a lot of other things. Bars, spirits, we make wine, we do a lot of different things. I'm here with Jacob today, who is the guy who works. I'm the guy who thinks, and he's the guy who works. He's going to talk more about that later. Today we'll talk briefly about Mikkeller with the focus on education. How do I change this? Cool. This is me. You can go to the next one. I'm actually a school teacher. I have no education in brewing. I have no education in running a company. I'm an educated school teacher in physics and chemistry and math. I was done studying to become a teacher in 2001, and then I got a job at a school in Nørrebro called the Frie Gymnasium, a very, very creative school. I'm by definition not a creative person. I would say if I go back to my youth, I was not creative at all. I'm very scientific and very math. But I got this job as a teacher at the Frie Gymnasium, which is, as I said, a very, very creative school, and I think that changed a lot for me. Being able to work with creative people, creative students, got me into creative thinking. I worked there for a couple of years, and then I started brewing in my kitchen. I've been a fan of craft beer for a while, and I started brewing in my kitchen in 2003. Just because I wanted to see if I could create beer the way that the professional craft beer breweries did. I bought a small pot in Føtex, and I just started brewing from scratch, knowing nothing about it. It went pretty shitty the first couple of years, but then it kind of picked up, and things started to go well. While brewing in my kitchen, I was teaching students at the Frie Gymnasium in chemistry and physics. And I thought, if I can brew at home, we can brew in the school as well. So I started teaching brewing for 8th graders. The thing with the Frie Gymnasium, you can do things that other schools wouldn't necessarily allow you to do. So we started brewing in this room, very small brews, 2-liter brews, and obviously brewing for 8th graders is a subject that they got very interested in. It's easier to tell them the advantages of knowing how to brew than knowing what a molecule is. So we brewed for a while. Then I met these two young fellas at the school, and we actually met at a school party where teachers and students, they get together and have a beer or two, and then they talk loosely. I met these two guys. We started talking about craft beer. We started talking about brewing. I told them I'm brewing in my kitchen at home, and they said we want to do the same. So we met at night after school closed. We went into the school kitchen and we started brewing our own beer. And we actually spent the whole night brewing, and then the next morning, people or students started coming in, and we were done brewing. And I went to class teaching, and they went to class on the other side of the table. These two fellas now have a brewery, a very, very successful brewery called Soøl. They export to, I think, 25, 30 different countries, and they are living off of brewing. So it actually made sense for me to teach other people brewing, and this is a very, very good example of that. In 2006, after brewing for some years in my kitchen, I thought, it would be fun to try and change things and try and show people in Denmark what beer actually can be and what beer for me is. We had this beer revolution in Denmark in the late 90s, where going from in 97, I think there were 13 breweries in Denmark. In 2005, there were more than 100 breweries. So we kind of had this change in people's beer drinking habit in Denmark. And I was obviously following that. Thought it was very interesting, but not interesting enough, because a lot of these new young breweries, this was before the crisis, and everybody went to the bank and got a big bank loan, and then they built a big brewery, and then they had to brew a lot of beer. And if you have to brew a lot of beer, you have to sell a lot of beer. And if you have to sell a lot of beer in Denmark, you have to do something that people know, and people know Carlsberg. So most of these breweries, they brewed something similar to Carlsberg, and I thought it was completely boring and worthless. I was following the trend in the States, so I thought, going from home brewing to brewing commercially, if I wanted to do that, I wanted to do it because I wanted to show people what beer is and to educate people in beer. So instead of going to the bank, I just called a brewery in Fyn and asked them, can I come and borrow your equipment and make my beer? And they said yes. I don't know why, because I had no idea how to brew in a brewery. But I went there and I brewed my first beer. Did a lot of mistakes, but the beer came out okay, and we sold it. I sold it, and then I did the next one. I never took a bank loan because I wanted to brew the best possible beer, not to sell it. And that actually was the start of Mikkeller in 2006. I had no urge to become a brewer. I wanted to teach, I wanted to educate people, but I thought beer is a passion for me, and I want to share that passion with other people. And things have kind of went from there. As a home brewer, one of the first things I did was, I mean, you can go to a shop and buy a beer that tastes well, but you have no idea what it's made of. You know it's made of malt, hops, water, and yeast, but you don't know what it is, what varieties it is. Most wine drinkers, they know which grapes they're drinking. Most beer drinkers, at least when I started brewing 8 years ago, they had no clue about hops. They knew that hops is a flavor in a beer, but they didn't know that we had different hops and they actually have different flavors. And you could use them in many different ways. So as a home brewer, I thought, if I want to learn, I need to educate myself. So I started brewing this series of beers. These are some of them these are not from home brewing; these are commercial brews. But I did these first. I did a single hop series where I actually did the same beer and added different hops to it, so I could taste the different hops. And this was something that had not been done in the international beer world before. But I learned a lot from doing that, because tasting the same base beer with different hops, you can actually taste that hop has different flavors. It's like wine. You can taste that this grape is different from the other grape. I did a few other series. So when I started Mikkeller, one of the first things I wanted to do, besides showing people that beer can actually be interesting, and a lot more interesting than what most breweries are doing, I wanted to educate the beer drinkers and show them that beer is actually as advanced as wine, and you can actually talk about different hop types, you can talk about different malt types, different yeasts, and stuff like that. So I started doing these series. These are two of them. The one to the right is a single hop series, as I told you, with same base beer, different hops, made for the sole purpose to educate the drinker. These single hop series has actually today become very, very popular in the international beer world, and pretty much every brewery with respect to themselves are doing single hop today, because it's a way of showing people that beer is more than just these 4 ingredients. The one to the left is just another example. In the beer world, there's a lot of barrel aging. It's a big trend in the beer world to put beer in barrels. We have some barrels in here as well. But if you put beer in a barrel, it picks up the taste from the barrel, obviously. But you can taste that this barrel contained bourbon before I put beer in it, but that's not educating. So what we did with this series was to take 6 different French oak barrels. In many people's, even in wine drinkers' mind, French oak is French oak, and then we have Hungarian and American oak and stuff like that, and they taste different. But there's actually a big difference, or there is a difference between French oak, from what region it comes from, how much it's toasted and stuff like that. And we did that with this series. So it's actually, in my opinion, more educating than you can do with wine, because no winery have ever done a French oak barrel-aged series. I do these experiments, as I said, to educate people, because for me, maybe because of my background as a brewer, it's really, really important to me that beer is more than just something you enjoy. It's something that you can learn from, something you can talk about, something you can share, something that you can be smarter with. And this series, these series, I've also done a yeast series where what defines a beer is the yeast, and nobody knows that. I'm sure none of you know that what actually defines most beer styles is defined by the yeast. In many people's mind, yeast is just something that creates alcohol and CO2, but it actually creates all the flavors as well. Can you take the next picture? Someone. In 2010, I brewed for 4 years. Not having a brewery is you get kind of rootless. We started exporting from day one. Today we have customers in about 50 countries. But not having a brewery, when people came to Denmark and wanted to visit me, I didn't know where to take them, besides down to kiosk to Kjeld's place to drink beer. So I decided in 2010 to open my first beer bar. And this was a beer bar before 2010, pretty much in Denmark. A beer bar looked like that. Very dark, maybe people didn't smoke, but very dark men with big bellies, big glasses, and a lot of beer talking and nothing else. Which is also fine, but I wanted to do something else. I wanted to first of all show people that you can actually drink beer in a different environment, and you can actually be a beer drinker, not being a big, fat, or big-bellied man. So this is the bar that I built, the first one. It's down in Victoriagade, 5 minutes walk from here. And in 2010, a beer bar that looked like this was unheard of. First of all, I wanted it to be light, because I wanted people to be able to see each other. I wanted people to be able to see the beer and be able to talk about it. I also wanted females in there. I think if you went to a beer bar in 2009, 95% were men, and I wanted at least 50% females, because if you have, you know that if you have females, you get more men as well. No, that's not the reason. So we made it kind of feminine, which also was very different. But again, we wanted to educate beer drinkers in a way and show them that beer can actually be something else than the picture before. We also chose to use different glasses. I don't think in 2009 you can get a beer in a glass like that anywhere, at least not in Europe. Maybe in the States, but not in Europe. This is actually a wine glass, a wine taster glass, 0.2 liters. And this was something. Again, we chose this because we wanted to show people that you can actually enjoy beer in small glasses, and you can actually taste different beers at the same time and compare them and learn about them and discuss them. And these small glasses are extremely popular in our bars today, and we see them in many other bars, which is obviously good. So building this bar kind of changed a lot for, I think, the beer scene in Denmark and also in the rest of the world. We have done quite a few more bars after this. We have 6 bars today. We have two in Denmark, 2 beer bars. We also have a beer and cocktail bar. Then last year, I think we did our first international bar in San Francisco, which, I mean, opening in San Francisco was obvious to us because we have a really good market and San Francisco is a really good beer town. But it wasn't a big challenge. So the next bar we opened was actually in Bangkok, Thailand. And again, the purpose of doing that, I mean, when we decided to do that, the beer world thought it was the most stupid idea because Thai people are not drinking a lot of craft beer. It's very hot in Thailand, so drinking a strong imperial stout is not the most obvious thing. domestic beer, not imported beer, is extremely cheap. Imported beer is extremely expensive. But I wanted to educate Thai people. And it could have been people from Chile or Nepal or something instead. But it just happened to be Thailand. I wanted to do something that actually was a challenge and try and change people's minds. And that's why we chose Bangkok as a second city to open our beer bar, a second international city. And that has changed a lot in Thailand actually already. And it's for me, it's challenging, but also fun to be able to change a culture. I'm not saying I'm changing millions and millions of Thai people's opinion about beer, but at least if we catch some of them, it's a good thing. Next picture. That's not me. Jacob is on.
There is, in my opinion, no doubt that Mikkel is the most innovative brewer in the world. And the numbers sort of speaks for themselves. We have like 650 different beers in our catalog now. Last year, Mikkel did 124 new ones, which, of course, exporting to 50 countries and brewing them in 33 different countries as well is kind of a challenge. And to be able to do that, there's also, it's very important, of course, as a part of education and everything we do, that we also get the right type of inspiration. The problem with this is that not many, not to say very few, Danish breweries actually share the same philosophies as we do. So getting inspiration is about going to different places than what you would normally do if you were a Danish brewer. That means going to restaurants. It means maybe talk to musicians, maybe talk to people from the graphic industry, and definitely also traveling and meeting brewers from different places. The thing is that a lot of the inspiration that Mikkel got from American brewers, because the American beer market is probably 10 to 15 years ahead of the Danish. So that meant traveling a lot, and it also meant that there was a lot of time away from being in the office and doing things. So an idea was to build sort of an atmosphere or a place where we could bring some of the brewers we admire to Copenhagen. So we came up with this idea of doing a beer festival in Denmark called Copenhagen Beer Celebration. It was meant as a small place, and the whole objective with the festival was to bring brewers together and make brewers discuss how they brew and do interesting things. We're running it the 4th year this year. It's become a massive success in terms of audience, but we don't really care that much about that, because the idea of this is not to make money or to make the audience happy. The idea is to challenge brewers and to tell brewers that we can move the boundaries of what beer is. This year we have 50 breweries coming. They are all per invitation, and we think it's the 50 best breweries in the world. We're really, really proud that they bring special beer for this. All of them, even the big American breweries that we bring that are not big compared to Anheuser-Busch and all that, but the big craft breweries, they make 8 special beers for this, and they only release it at this festival. So we have something quite extraordinary going on here, and there is a really, really nice competition between the breweries going on. Everybody wants to bring the beer that people think is the most interesting. This is for us, it's a perfect place for us to get inspiration, but it's also a perfect place for brewers to educate each other. And it's been a part of our success the last years that we were able to bring sort of the best in the business together in doing this. This year we sold the tickets in, I think, 10 minutes. And it's of course, it's a consideration if we should make this a lot bigger than it is. We have, it holds 1,000 people. And we could probably sell at least 5,000 people for each session, or 5,000 tickets for each session. But we think that the atmosphere of this is perfect, and we think that this is what brewers they basically they want to be able to discuss. So the plan now is to basically keep it at the level that it is. To finish this off, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the place you're in now. This is basically the result of all the inspiration that we have been getting from traveling to the States and seeing how American breweries do it. There are a lot of brew pubs in the States, and they are different from the brew pubs that we have in Denmark. we felt that we needed a place like this where we could go and have fresh American beers, where we could have Texas barbecue, and where we could brew beer on site. Of course, it's a big change for a brewer like Mikkel that we now actually go to a place where we have our own physical brewery, because we're used to brewing at other people's breweries. But this is giving us new opportunities, and it's also giving us chance to be ahead and be able to also come up with new ideas in the future and to educate on that. We've done this. We're lucky enough to do this with Three Floyds, which is an American brewery, and they have been named the best brewery in the world for at least a couple of years. They are very, very good at doing the beers that fit a place like this, in our opinion. Of course, we are not worried, but extremely excited to see how the Danish population will actually react to a place like this, because it's going to be very different from what we have in Copenhagen now. Just the Texas barbecue taste is something, of course, all guys like meat, but it's not a taste that we are really accustomed to in Denmark. So this place for us is very much an experiment, and as you can see, a fairly big experiment. And there's no doubt that we will like coming here, and we will like coming here to have the fresh American pale ales that we can get directly from the brewery. But it's interesting to see how Copenhagen will react to it. We're opening in the spring of 2015. Don't know yet, because as always, there's a lot of things that had to fall into place. We have Kyle, an American brewer that we brought over from Chicago. We are going to have an American chef called Andrew coming here in the beginning of January. When we are done talking here, Kyle and also Christian, where are you over there, is ready to give you a tour of the place so that you can see the secret basement and the massive smokers we've bought and the system and all that. So we're very excited about this, and I hope that some of you will come back and see it when it opens. So you want to finish? That's what we have. Then let's go.